for having me. As you know, it's customary for most of us to visit with Mr. President during the Christmas and the New Year. But as most of you know, I've been embedded in my campaigns for governor in Delta State. And as a consequence of that, I was not able to make the visits, and also because of the Christmas celebration, I had to dash into the US for a couple of days, and I'm back, and I thought before commencing the second round of my campaigns, I should stop by and visit Mr. President. That principally is what brought me, in addition to discussions of issues of national affairs. Misconception to tag Delta State a PDP state. Not by any means. Okowa is very, very ripe for the taking. Delta is very, very ripe for the taking. We're determined to achieve this. We've been going around each of the local governments, word by word, making the case, drawing the attention of the people of the state to the misgovernance and lack of performance on the part of not just Okowa, but the PDP-led administration in the past 14 years, let me say the past 14 years, but most especially in the last 7.5 years. And the message we are saying to our people is resonating. We've been able to make the case to them that Delta State is supposedly a very, very rich state, and indeed we are a rich state, given the contributions that we've made not only to the economy of this country, but also to the economy of the state, because of the receipts that we've gotten from federal allocation, inclusive of 13% derivation, and other receipts have come to the state by way of IGR. And by our reckoning, since the Okowa administration came into being, Delta State has received close to about 4.2 trillion naira. And this came, like I said, by way of federal allocation. It came by way of 13% derivation, and also about 400 billion naira that the state has borrowed. And only recently, thanks to my brother, the governor of River State, who also made to understand that another 260 billion naira was given to our state on account of So if you look at that, out of a total of 4.2 trillion naira that has come to the state, there's nothing on ground by way of infrastructural development that is commensurate with all of these receipts that have come to the state. The people are in despair. We have civil servants who gave the best part of their years in the service of the state, and upon retirement, are still being owed gratuities, for the most part pensions, some owed 6, 7, 8, 9 years and not being paid. A state that is that rich. We have, as you all know, the minimum wage, which has been approved for the entire country. In Delta State, notwithstanding our receipts, Delta is one of the very few states that is not paying the minimum wage, when you have even states up north, you know, that receive close to about a quarter, in most cases even less, of the allocations coming to Delta State, paying minimum wage. The health sector is in a state of decay, so too is the educational sector. We have, before Okowa became governor, we've had tuition and other fees in Delta State tertiary institutions going for about 17,000 naira per year. Today, right now, it's close to about 470,000 naira per student. Now, these are children of Deltans who have not been paid the minimum wage. These are children of retirees who have not been paid their pensions, but yet are supposed to fork up some money, these additional increases to pay this tuition for their children. So the state is in serious despair. People are very, very angry. They're in a hurry to kick out this government. And on top of that, there's also this issue of equity. People are very, very, we are gentlemen. We are very, very gentle people. Our word is our bond in Delta State. We are equitable. We fight for equity for all. And it is the position of Deltans, and most especially, indeed, the entire southern Nigeria, that given the fact that we have supported Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari for president for the past 8 years, it is only fair, just, and equitable that the next president should come from southern Nigeria. And it may also interest you that Okowa, as the chairman of the Governors Forum in the South-South, was one of those who led this charge and met in Asaba, where the case was made and the position was taken, and a communique was signed to the effect that at the expiration of the tenure of Mr. President from northern Nigeria, the next president must come from the south. And that position of the governors was equally supported by Mr. President himself, Muhammadu Buhari. Our president supported the same position. And then we're also lucky to have had the support of the governors of northern Nigeria, most especially of the APC extraction. I believe about 16 or 17 of them all came together and approved the same position taken by the governors of southern Nigeria. So to the chagrin and disappointment of many at home, Okowa has betrayed that cause by selling away our right to the presidency and instead going for a meager office of vice president at the time when the entire country is offering us the presidency. So our people are not taking this treachery, kindly, and they're determined to punish Okowa. So our prospects are very, very bright. In addition to what we offer, we want to change the narrative in the state. We have our own agenda, a plan, a manifesto. We've christened the EDGE agenda. In that agenda, we've taken a look at the challenges facing the state, most importantly, the issue of unemployment. We've had our children that have graduated from school, some 6, 7, 8, 9 years without employment opportunities, despite the monies that have come to the state. So we've decided to focus on job creation for our people, inclusive of empowerment of our people by way of employment, and then also trying to create opportunities for our women and our children by empowering them to set up their own businesses to keep their families together. And like I said, the same manifesto also addresses the issue of infrastructural decay. If you go to Delta State today, there is no road, no single road that is a new road that was constructed by Okowa as a governor. The last set of roads we have in Delta State were constructed by Governor James Ibori. Since that time, not a single new road, either by Governor Dwan or by Governor Okowa. All he's been doing is patches using mushroom companies to do patches, remedial works on some of these roads, which after 3-4 months, gets washed away by the rains. So we're determined to arrest this infrastructural decay, by making this a priority in the next government, which we have provided for in our manifesto. But most importantly, the issue of enduring peace and security, which is another plank in the manifesto, is one we intend to focus on, because at the end of the day, for us to be able to have all of these jobs created, to have companies that have left the state, come back to the state, to set up and help create employment opportunities for our people, we need to create an enduring peaceful environment for them. We have states that have invested so much in security, most especially, I don't mention names, but we have some states that have taken security as a priority, did the requisite investment, and they are getting, those efforts are yielding results. So we intend to do the same, put in the requisite investment so that those companies that left can come back there and help us to create employment opportunities for people. I'll take further questions. Thank you very much, my brother. I hope this is not sabotage, because you are from my state and you've asked a very, very good question. I think it's important that people get the benefit of a response to that question. Yes, I am the Deputy Senate President, and I have my daytime job here in the National Assembly. But my people at home also understand that I'm also the candidate, the go-back candidate for APC in the 2023 general elections. I have a reputation for multitasking. I have tried as much as possible with the help and the assistance of my principal, the president of the Senate, who is very, 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 very accommodating and understanding of my quest at home. Is held forth, while I'm away, and where it's become almost impossible for him to cope without me. He's put his foot down. I must come back for a campaign train and do my job to which I was elected, and I've been able to come in from time to time to do that by way of presiding over the Senate. But beyond that, I've also been around to participate in debates on the floor. I can say yes, it's there's no problem. I've been able to combine both assignments with my campaigns. We have 25 local government areas, as you know. We've gone around 15 of them. By our calculation, we should have been done with 17, but we had some people in some of our veterans and supporters in my campaign train. We had a tragedy in the riverine areas just before the Christmas, and we felt that in honor of the departed, that we should suspend the campaigns, and mourn with their families. Now we're about to resume, actually tomorrow, to face the remaining 10 local governments, and so far we're doing well. Now, in terms of my priorities, like I've mentioned, if you go to Delta today, one thing that aches and ails every home, there's no homestead you will go to in Delta State and not find that challenge, is one of unemployment. In response to that question, if you go to Delta State today, there is no homestead where you will not meet a child who has gone to school, well-educated, graduated 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, who is unemployed. This unemployment challenge knows no party boundaries, knows no language boundaries, no religious boundaries. Unemployment is unemployment, and people just at home. All they seek is an opportunity to hold a daytime job, to be able to take care of their families. So we're making this a priority through that plank of our manifesto, which is the employment and the empowerment of our people. Now, how do we intend to do this? I must make clear, we have a clear understanding that government really does not create jobs, should not really be in the business of creating jobs, but should be in the business of creating the enabling environment for jobs to be created. Now, in the past, we've had so many companies in the state that when the economy was booming, gave employment opportunities to our people, but most of these companies, for one reason or the other, but for the most part, citing security concerns, have moved away from the state to other states, and whether contributing so much to the IGRO and other revenue sources of those states. So we're asking ourselves, what do we do, to attract them, to bring them back to a Delta state? We intend to address this issue of security. Like I said, it's a matter of political will. Should you decide to make the appropriate and requisite investment in that sector, there's no reason why we should not be able to attract these companies to come back. Like I said, we have a few states for security reasons. I won't mention them, but these are issues that have become privileged. They have privileged access because of my office in our interaction with the security agencies. We got to know what those security devices are, how expensive they are, and what states have decided to make the investments, and the results, that has yielded from those investments. And I'm confident that we're determined, there's something we're determined to do, to invest in Delta, and once we do that, all these companies will come back to the state, because that's the reason they left in the first place. Beyond, besides giving them further incentives to bring the companies back, maybe dwell so much, take advantage of the pioneer status, which they're entitled to bring them in there, to help them with the taxes, provide land for them. Basically, ease of doing business, to make it easier for them to come to the state, make it more attractive. We have to give them reasons why it is better to come and do business as opposed to remaining in other states. So we're looking at that. And then two, we also have some of these companies that were there have shut down. Most of them are into the manufacturing sector. And the raw materials that they were using are still there. So we are asking ourselves, I'll give you an example, like in a place, thank God you're from my state. Take Ughelli, for instance, when we used to have the Bende glass factory and then the Delta glass factory. Now, all of the raw materials needed, for those companies, to function, they are still there. They never left. Today, one is functioning, Delta glass, which is now Beta glass, is functioning. But Delta glass is dead. And we're asking ourselves, why? And while Delta glass was functioning, they were creating a lot of employment opportunities, for our people. So we tend to bring that back. Look at it, ATMP, African Timber and Plywood. We still have the forest, we still have the woods. There's no reason why we cannot attract them back, maybe in a different name, but to start something. No reason. Even, I don't know where you're from in Delta, but that's about textile mill. What happened? What happened? The cottons that is being grown here, right, is still there. It's still there. So it's just that it has not been a priority of government. But we want to make it a priority so that these companies can come back and set up and begin to assist in that endeavor. And then also in terms of infrastructural development, look at the roads, for instance. I keep giving an example. I was in Imo State, I believe about 4 months ago, where Mr. President was invited to commission, I think pretty much close about 50-kilometer road, that was constructed by my friend, the governor of Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodimma. It's a federal road, and I'm emphasizing that. It's a federal road. But the governor used the resources of the people of Imo State to do that road. double carriageway with street lighting all through, and got the president to invite. And I heard him when he was remarking to Mr. President that this is a federal road. Ordinarily, it is the obligation of the federal government. But he also realized that the people who ply that roads, they are not federal officials from Abuja. They are citizens of, indigenous of Imo State who ply the roads. Likewise, we intend to do the same in Delta. The two major roads, as you know, the one leading from Ugele through Isoko to Kwale to Asaba, is a federal road, we admit. The one leading from PTI to Warri, through Agbo to Asaba, also a federal road, admitted. But it is not the federal people who apply those roads. It is you and I, Deltans. And there's no reason why, given the resources that we have, the amount of money that has come to the state, inclusive of the borrowing, why some of this money should not be used to complete the construction of this road. So we intend, as one of our priorities, federal road or no federal road, we're going to engage in the construction and or reconstruction of these roads. But why it matters for purpose of this question is that we're also, unlike what the current government is doing by using some mom and pop companies who have no business even doing menial jobs, to handle this kind of major roads that wash away after 3-4 months. We intend to bring in reputable companies like Julius Berger, just like Governor Wike is doing in Rivers. But we are going to insist on one thing for purpose of this question: local content. Local content. If you need an engineer, an artisan, we have them. Among these kids who have graduated from school, 6, 7, 8 years, they've graduated. They have the educational know-how. If you need an engineer amongst them, insisting on local content, you must give them priority. It's only when you demonstrate to us that the technical know-how and experience you require is not present locally. That's the only time we permit you to go outside. So that's another way of helping to address the employment and unemployment concerns. And like I said, our roads, our schools, our hospitals are in serious state of decay. So we're also going to be focusing on infrastructure. I was in the Riverine area campaigning not too long ago, and this is the bread basket, so to speak, of this country. The bulk of the wealth of this country comes from that area. We're talking about the Ishekiri waterways and the Ijo waterways. That is where the bulk of the wealth of this country is produced. But when you go there, these people, they are basically existing. They're not living, but they produce the bulk of this wealth. You go there, imagine a woman, for instance, living in that community who is pregnant, goes into labor, complicated labor, and needs to get to the nearest hospital in Warri. If she's lucky, the speedboat that would take her to that hospital, it would take about 2.5 hours. That is if you are lucky to get a speedboat, immediately. Otherwise, if you're using the smaller ones, right, it would take you about 5 hours. Now, what happened to that woman in labor? Now, we have a medical doctor who is a governor. The one who was governor before him, also a medical doctor. And in this case, actually comes from that local government area, that terrain. And it beats me, frankly, why they've not been able to identify and handle some of these issues. So we intend to bring development as expensive as it is, and indeed it is expensive, no doubt, to these riverine communities by way of improvements in the health sector, making sure we provide I won't say a glorified healthcare center, I won't accept that, but something meaningful, commensurate with the contributions of these people to the economy of the state. So we want to address the health sector, we want to address the educational sector. Some of you, if you go to most of the tertiary institutions we have in the state, even though they are state tertiary institutions, they are basically being run by TED Fund. Some of that are like glorified secondary schools. I believe we can do better. We're a rich state, we have enough resources. If the bulk of the money that the current governor is devoted to the funding of the Atiku Okowa campaign for president, if even ordinary 1/10 of that money is devoted to addressing this infrastructural decay in Delta, the state will be better off. Thank you. Representing Delta State and speaking as the Deputy Senate President, I have an obligation, as most of you know, to support Mr. President, and this time will not be an exception. It is a decision that was taken. Basically, all they're asking for is ratification. These are monies that has been expended through legitimate means, using the Ways and Means device. There is no allegation of any wrongdoing here. Basically, any name you call it, they're asking for ratification of the decision has been taken for monies already legitimately expended. So, Mr. President has my support, always had my support, and he has my support on this one. And I believe that majority of my colleagues, I do not speak for all of my colleagues, of course, but I believe that majority of my colleagues will support Mr. President and will give that support. Yes, sir. Yes. I'm not comfortable with your conclusions when it says an exercise in futility. We have up to and inclusive of May 29, to round up and get these ratified bills across to Mr. President. Notwithstanding that this is an election season, some of us are still able to multitask, as previously alluded to address these issues. But I like for you to look at it from the context of where the challenge is coming from. We, as members of the national obligation, members of the National Assembly, we have our obligation, and the obligation is one: come up with the areas where we believe changes to the constitution needs to be made, and in doing that, we're supposed to reach out to the entire citizenry, get their views, collate the same, get the National Assembly to debate and vote. This is the obligation imposed on the National Assembly by Section 9 of the Constitution. I can tell you that the National Assembly, we have fulfilled our part of that bargain. What is now left is to get the concurrence of 24 houses of assemblies of the states. That is also a Section 9 obligation, but this time imposed on the state houses of assembly. As we speak, my mistake, I probably should have, if I knew this question was going to come up, I probably should have spoken to the clerk of my committee before walking in here, but I know that notwithstanding the brouhaha over this, the states have been meeting, and they've been taking positions on most of these bills. I don't know how many right now, but the bigger challenge we have, frankly, it's not so much all of the bills, it's the bills dealing with the local government autonomy, both financial and admin. And those are the two critical issues. But the other bills, most of them have passed. They've passed, we've gotten more than the required number of houses of assembly for some of those bills. But what matters to us, which is a priority to us, which is a big priority of Mr. President, it's the issue of the local government autonomy. And that's where we're having challenges. And that is because of the position of some of the governors, who believe that they should not be in support of this. But my personal view, not speaking for the National Assembly as a whole, my personal view, the obligation is actually imposed on the state houses of assembly and not on the governors. And I would have expected that the state houses will show some independence, in making some of these decisions. But it does appear that, and I can't fault them, for working with their state governors, in taking these positions. But we believe that with time, we'll be able to resolve this. The President of the Senate has reached out to some of the governors, most especially through my friend, the governor of Kaduna State, to reach out to his fellow governors, like Kaduna, for instance. Kaduna has already voted. Kaduna has voted and has transmitted. Of course, we won one, we lost one. I think Kaduna, if I'm right, my memory serves me right, they voted local government, I think they approved administrative autonomy, but they voted down financial autonomy, if my memory serves me right. But the bottom line is that they have voted. All that the Constitution requires that, take your vote and bring back to us. We would have been happier if we got both from Kaduna State House of Assembly, But most of the others have voted for both admin autonomy and financial autonomy. So I'm confident we're working. My brother, my colleague in the House, the Deputy Speaker, is also reaching out. We're confident that in no time we should be able to get the requisite number. I pray for the local government autonomy, but like I said, that's not the only bill. Actually, we transmitted 44 bills, if I'm right, 44 bills. But these two appears to be the most critical to a lot of stakeholders. So please, don't rush to judgment by labeling this exercise an exercise in futility. Thank you.